Well, today, Zimbabwe's president-elect Emmerson Mnangagwa will be inaugurated for his second term after winning the controversial August elections. Mnangagwa's party, ZANU-PF, emerged as the winner, securing more than 50% of the total votes cast, while the leading opposition party, the Citizens Coalition for Change, achieved more than 40% of the votes. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has accepted the invitation. He will be attending the inauguration and has congratulated the government and the people of Zimbabwe for organising and holding peaceful elections. In fact, the president has boarded a plane. He has already left for Zimbabwe, with those visuals coming from the presidency. But for the latest, we're joined on the line now by Sophie Mokoena, who is SABC News' International Editor. Sophie, good to have you. Thanks so much for talking to us. So we know that the Zim president is going to be sworn in today. And of course, some Zimbabweans and opposition have disputed the election results ahead of the inauguration. From what you've heard, I imagine it's all systems go, and those disputing it are sort of not going to be having a say in today.
Yes, indeed, Leanne. We saw a number of representatives from different countries arriving last night and this morning. Some are a very low-key delegation, ministers, even ambassadors. Others are vice presidents. And in the case of South Africa, the President of the Republic will soon touch down at Robert Mugabe International Airport to be part of the festivities. But there's a huge issue around the elections, as you pointed out, that the opposition, CCC, has rejected the results. And we are told that they didn't take a decision to go to court because they believe that they won't find joy in the judicial system. This morning, the spokesperson of CCC, responding to my social media post that they are now embarking on the diplomatic charm offensive to show that these elections were not free and fair. She responded that it's because there's not a problem of legal process in Zimbabwe, but it is more administrative and deeper, and therefore that is why they will be engaging diplomats, countries and stakeholders in terms of where to from here.
So, I mean, there are calls for a transitional government on the disputed elections. I mean, do you see something like that happening post today's swearing in of the president?
I don't think so, because the ZANU-PF and the president-elect is confident that he has won elections. And the fact that the matter didn't go to court, this is the issue that he is going to use to say if there were any issues, they should have gone to court. Now, the diplomatic charm offensive of the opposition, we don't know what will it translate into, because it will be difficult for anybody to reverse the election results. Only the court of law can do that after the Electoral Commission has made a pronouncement. So it is a difficult one. And remember, this is the last term of Mnangagwa. If they don't amend the constitution, you know, in Africa, never say never. Yeah. And therefore, he's, confident. He's now powering ahead, ensuring that he defends his legacy. It's all about legacy building process right now. So I can't see him agreeing. He might reach out to opposition in his own way, in terms of perhaps involving them. I don't know how, whether inviting one or two to cabinet or other structures, I don't know. But I can see ZANU-PF or Mnangagwa agreeing to a government of national unity, because this is a complete different situation compared to 2008, where ZANU-PF had lost both the parliamentary seats and the presidential position. This time around, they've won the parliamentary seats, and they have won the presidential position according to the Electoral Commission, but the SADC Observer Mission chair yesterday on the national TV in Zambia pointed out that the final report of SADC says elections didn't meet regional and international standards. So you have a very, very difficult situation for SADC.
It really is. But I mean, we're seeing President Ramaphosa being among the African leaders that are expected to attend the ceremony. I mean, his plane jetted off earlier this morning. What will this mean to those opposing the results and the very vocal opposition of these elections?
SABC has rightly learned that he decided to go to them with the hope that he might engage President Mnangagwa in terms of the prevailing situation right now, because you know that South Africa is going to be affected in relation to what is now happening in Zimbabwe, because the international organizations, some of them and some countries have already pointed out that elections didn't meet the regional and international standard. Therefore, that thorny issue of so-called sanctions will not be off the table for those countries that have imposed those targeted sanctions. Secondly, there's going to be a continuation of the opposition saying we don't recognize the president or the sitting president, and it is going to be tense. And we may see a situation where it is difficult to revive the economy, and therefore, due to the economic situation in that country, we will see more Zimbabweans leaving the country, going to neighboring countries. And you know, only South Africa is going to have to deal with this issue. Not many will go to Zambia or Tanzania, Eswatini, Lesotho, and DRC, Mauritius, Botswana. They will descend on the shores of South Africa, or they will cross the borders to South Africa. Some will be doing this in relation to security and political environment, because the government will also take action against those who are continuing to reject the election. And perhaps you know that they've just passed a bill that is aimed at dealing with people who are kind of projecting the country in a bad light. And that means even people expressing themselves in relation to the legitimacy of government. And therefore, some of them may end up in exile or outside. And the first point, or the first point of entry is South Africa. So South Africa is going to deal with this matter, and it is going to be a huge problem for the ANC, the governing party, ahead of the elections, and for the government, and for South Africa in general, ahead of the elections, because you know the issue of urbanization is a problem, and therefore when you have other people coming in, it gets even more complicated, and therefore it is a hot potato for South Africa.
Yeah. Just in terms of a petition that was also set up online calling for a political settlement in Zimbabwe, has it gained traction? And on another note, I know I'm piling you with questions, Sophie, but the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, also voiced concern about the arrest of observers, reports of voter intimidation, threats of violence, harassment, coercion. How much is the UN watching what happens in Zimbabwe? So the UN and this online petition?
Well, clearly the online petition has received some support and attention. And I think the people who put together that petition, I spoke to Professor Ibo Mandaza last week. I think they are going to engage in a more vigorous campaign. And when you look at the opposition position, talking about diplomatic channels, you can see that it's almost similar to what the petition is saying. Therefore, clearly, if you get more people, more organizations and countries sympathetic to the petition, you will see it gaining traction. But clearly, every time the media speaks to those who have put together a petition, it will continuously cause a dent to the image of the sitting president and the country. So that is why I'm saying it is going to be a rocky 5 years. Secondly, you spoke about the UN. Indeed, the UN Secretary General pointed out that they are monitoring the situation and spoke about what they have observed. And UN will continuously monitor the situation. It will take you from the regional organization, as they do, and the continental body, the AU. And now the regional body, the observers report. The question is, what is the organ on politics and defense going to do with that report? And the organ is chaired by the president of Zambia, Hishelema. He's the one who appointed the observer mission chairperson. And it must be taken to the heads of state and government summit. But this heads of state and government summit will only happen next year, as you know. And next year, Zimbabwe is the incoming chair of SADC at the assembly level or at the heads of state and government level. So the question is, Zimbabwe going to take over SADC chairmanship? Will this report receive attention? So that's why I'm saying it's a very complicated matter, because even now, as the incoming chair of SADC, if the chair, which is Angola, is not available, the incoming becomes the deputy chair. So already Zimbabwe is part of the leadership of SADC right now. So it's a very, very complicated matter, I must say. Yes.
It certainly sounds that way. Sophie, thanks for updating us and keeping us in the loop of what's going on. It'll also be interesting to see what opposition leader Nelson Chamisa does after today going forward. But anyway, that was Sophie Mokoena, our SABC International News Editor, giving us an update on today's Zimbabwean President-elect Emmerson Mnangagwa's inauguration for his second term after winning his elections. The ZANU-PF party won the country's presidential and parliamentary elections.